Hey guys, my name is Kelton and this is Obsessed Reviews. So today we're with the 2026 Chevy Trax Activ, and the Trax is Chevy's cheapest vehicle, if you guys didn't know, and it starts around $20,000, which is a really rare thing in today's market, and vehicles that are this cheap are really a dying breed. We've been making our rounds with all the Chevy vehicles, all the new ones, but this one is interesting because this is part of a segment that's extremely competitive and very value packed. It's a very valuable segment. And when I think about the competitors in this segment, I think about the CHR, for example, which just got redesigned and looks absolutely beautiful. And then we have the Kicks and the HRV. So all of these vehicles are vehicles that people are looking at because they offer so much for so little. So does this make a great case for itself amongst all of those heavy hitters? Alright, starting with the exterior design, what separates this vehicle for me and what honestly kind of confuses me as far as Chevy's lineup is how wide of a vehicle, or at least how wide the stance is of this vehicle. It's about the same height or very close to the same height as the Trailblazer, and the Trailblazer and the Trax compete in the same segment. So it's kind of confusing as to why they would offer two in that segment. But I guess Chevy is really offering and valuing value. But you'll notice that when you look at the Trailblazer, it's much taller and more narrow, while this is, it looks lower and wider. And I definitely like this stance better, and I'm sure it rides better than the Trailblazer because it can feel like you're kind of about to tip over in the Trailblazer. And this, I'm sure, feels more like a sedan. As far as the competitors, I really feel like rather than a Kicks, this kind of reminds me more of the CX-30 in the way it's designed and the way they've thought it out. And by the end of this, I kind of want you guys to tell me, would you rather take the Trailblazer or would you take the Trax? Because I would definitely take the Trax more, and I'll tell you why later. But looking at the front, it definitely, like I said, looks wide and aggressive. And I told you guys before that I really love what Chevy's doing with styling lately. I know some people don't like sharp styling, but I really do. And I think Chevy isn't doing a bad job at all. And this is another example of that. It's simple, but it's sharp. It's aggressive, but not too aggressive, not overstyled. I think it looks great. All right, like I said, this is the Activ trim. So it's going to have these 18-inch gloss black wheels. For me, gloss black wheels are always a hit or miss, depending on the design of the vehicle and the wheels themselves. I always love a design that kind of mimics motion, the turning of the wheels. And I feel like this does that a little bit. So looks pretty great. Now coming to the side profile, this is like black vehicle, black on black on black. And the side profile is kind of interesting because, like I said, this is an SUV that kind of sits lower than what you might expect. I'm standing over it, and I'm 5'7" for context. So it kind of just throws you off a little bit. But I think that the people that love small SUVs, they're definitely going to enjoy this. And then we have black cladding. Now, people are doing that a lot for these small SUVs. I wonder, what do you think of that? But it really doesn't bother me in terms of the overall design. I really didn't notice it that much until now. And throughout the review, I'm probably going to keep comparing this to the CX-30 because it really reminds me of the CX-30 in terms of, like I said, the dimensions of it. And comparing this to the CX-30, I'll say this. I think that the CX-30 is the better designed option, but I don't think this looks bad. Also, I think that this might appeal to more people. A lot of people don't completely enjoy the Kodo design. So if you like a sharper design, like I said before, this is that. Then coming to the rear end, this is the one part of the design that, to be honest, I don't like. When I see these on the highway, it just looks a little off. I think it's a combination of the taillights and the profile and how wide it is, and it's just a little off, but it's not that bad. And I think that honestly, the rest of the vehicle makes up for it. What I am noticing is we have some brushed dark aluminum down here, which is weird because there's no aluminum on the rest of any of this vehicle. So why that's there, I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Alrighty, guys, we are inside the 2026 Chevy Trax Activ. Now I'm gonna go and start it up, and excuse me if the AC is a little loud because it is very hot out here. I'm sweating bullets. Alright, but as you guys can see, inside the Trax, we have a very nice interior, this is really where the value of the vehicle is going to start to peek out at you, because it doesn't give $27,000, you know? Now, if you don't remember, I remember. Jesus, it's so hot. Now, if you don't remember, the Chevy Trax before this generation was a nightmare. And I really hated that vehicle. I hated it so bad because it was so terrible at everything and still cost just as much as the competitors. And they hadn't updated it in so long. So when this generation came, I was really excited for that. And I think I was right to be. They really did a great job on this interior, especially because the last generation was 10 years behind. Now, as far as materials, this is going to be a positive of this vehicle. Like I said, it doesn't give $27,000. If I got in this interior and didn't know how much it costs, I think it would be probably, I would guess it would be around $31,000, 32. There are areas where there's plastic, but it's not where you touch and not where it matters. Now, I do not like that there's gloss black up here. All the reviewers have talked about how gloss black is not good to have in places, but at least it's in a place you won't be touching. Now, I like this material. I thought it was just plastic, but it has a nice texture to it, and good job on Chevy for doing something a little different. And then we have nice leather seats and these yellow accents, which makes it a little more fun and a little more creative. And then, of course, we come to the main centerpiece of every car's interior today, which is the technology and the usability. And the technology in this car is going to be great. It's going to be pretty much comparative to what you would get in any other vehicle in this class. And that's going to be a big screen. This is a 11-inch screen, I believe. It has a wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all the things. Automatic climate control. We have heated seats in here, which is really nice. And then a digital gauge cluster. I will say I wish the digital gauge cluster was more configurable. I wish that they used the space a little better. I talked about this in the Trailblazer review. But yeah, and then I don't know if you guys can see it. I might have to record it again. But gauge 3, I do not like this. I don't know what this is. But we could have used our space a lot better here. I'd probably keep it on infotainment and just keep it simple. And then in this vehicle, you're only going to have a 6-speed, on the Activ trim at least, you're going to have a 6-speed? You're going to have a 6-speaker sound system. And I am going to test that, and I'm going to place that here for you guys to hear. Sounded kind of good, but I'm gonna make sure it's not a fluke. Okay, I'm gonna say this about the sound system. It's not amazing, but I think that Chevy did what they could with the 6-speaker sound system and tuned it well enough, and it sounds better than the Trailblazer's audio if that's something you're worried about. So if you're worried about that, I go with this, and you'll be able to listen to your music in here fine. Now, moving on with the interior, I feel like the usability is one thing that's really good. A lot of cars today, and even in classes as low as this, but not as much in cheaper vehicles. I do notice. They are integrating everything into the screen. There's no buttons. It's absolutely bizarre. And a lot of people don't like that, understandably, because it's hard to use screens while you're driving. And I feel like this is a vehicle that does it well. You have a good screen that does what you need to do. And then you have climate controls, buttons, and you have a real shifter. Now, I don't have problems with electronic shifters, but some people do. So some people might appreciate this. And then you have buttons on the steering wheel that are also helpful, and buttons on the back of the steering wheel. Now, climate control is integrated into the infotainment system if that's what you want to do. But I'm sure most people will just use it down here, which would just make more sense. But that's pretty much going to be it for the front of the cabin. I'm going to jump in the back now. And actually, one more thing before we move on. A slight complaint is that the visibility in this car is not good. Of course, you can see out your mirror as well, and to your left and your right. But looking in this mirror, that rear window is small. And of course, we have a backup camera, which all vehicles require, but it's small, and I don't think we have parking sensors in here either. I'm pretty sure that a lot of this stuff that you would want comes on a package that you'd have to get for the active trim, because I'm definitely noticing that we don't have blind spot monitoring, which is a letdown. That should be standard, or it should be at least included on the active trim, because this is not the base model. We're like 3 trims up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, guys, getting in the back seat. This is gonna have pretty much standard room for the class, as it does with many other things. And I have enough space back here. Of course, I'm only 5'7", so don't use me to compare, but I'm sure it can fit some small kids perfectly fine and some small adults if you really need to. And yeah, you have some USB-C, you have a USB-C and USB port back here. And other than that, there's nothing really special going on. What I don't like is that the materials aren't really carried from the front to the back here, but I guess, take what you can get. All right, let's talk power. So this is going to have a 1.2 liter Ecotech 4-cylinder, and it's going to have about 137 horsepower and front wheel drive only. So if all wheel drive is important to you, this will not offer it. As far as the power and the powertrain, I think this is pretty standard for the class, and it's not going to excite you on the road, but that's also pretty much what you expect from this class. If you do want something that excites you on the road, there are some other ones in the class that you could go towards, like the Kona N, for example, but that will cost you a lot more than this. But I do feel like power isn't really what you're looking for once you shop in this class. All right, guys. So to kind of wrap up what we just looked at here, I think that this is a really great pick in a very affordable class like the compact SUV segment, and this Trax especially offers a lot, even at its very base trims. And this Trax especially is one of the few vehicles where you can still get it for around $20,000, low 20s. So that is definitely something to consider if you're looking for a vehicle that will, do everything you need it to do for a very cheap price. Now, keep in mind, a lot of vehicles in this class may offer a better package, whether it be materials, power, off-road ability, etc. They might offer a better package, but this is going to be one of the very few, if that can be around $20,000. Well, start at $20,000, I mean. So that's a very valuable thing, especially in a world where the average exchange price for a vehicle today is around $51,000. This is only $27,000, and I think it's a good value. But let me know, would you guys get a Trax? Would you get a Trailblazer? Or would you go and get something else in the segment? Anyways, guys, that will do it for me. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'm trying to get more dealership access, so if you have any tips. And also, I really do want to thank the people here at Crain Chevrolet, especially Jessica. Come and see them, and come and see Jessica if you're looking for a new vehicle or a used vehicle. They are really nice up here, and they will help you out. And if you are looking for this vehicle specifically and you're in the Southwest Little Rock area, then I'll link it in the description. But anyways, y'all have a good one, and let me know what you think. Bye.